Um, Hello and welcome to Phoenix Vision. I am here with my brother Ed Thompson, who is many things: holistic health practitioner, movement specialist, and I'm sure he can share some more because I want to ask about some of the interesting things that you've been up to, Ed. But yeah, welcome to the podcast once again for the second round.
Ah, Thanks, Jess. It's good to be here. And yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a while since our last round, but this feels like a really good timing. Birthday season, and yeah, it's really good to be here with you now.
Oh, mate, likewise, very much likewise. And yeah, birthday season. For this is a podcast all about the Leo archetype, and like you are one of my favorite Leos. In fact, you freaking look like a lion. You got a freaking mane going on, looking really like regal and like yeah, man. So I've been looking forward to this podcast for a long time. So, or since we booked it. So which was only it was a couple of weeks ago, but life is moving so fast that it feels like such a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. But mate, before we dive into Leo, though, I'd love to ask about how your journey has been since our last podcast, which was a good couple of years ago. I think we were last on because I know from our chats you've been up to like a lot of interesting things and a lot of like different areas. So yeah, what have you been up to, brother?
Oof. Wow. So last time we were on the podcast, I was in Cornwall in a retreat center, which was right at the south tip of the UK, on a few ley lines, and I was living in a sort of a mud hut for a few months over winter. So it feels like a lot has changed. Oof, yeah. Um, I'm journeying with movement medicine from January. I've been diving in deeply, and since August last year. So I met a movement medicine teacher, and um, in a festival about this time last year, and I've been working with him in retreats and one-on-one, exploring basically how dance, emotions, um, my body, and my relationships to life and in general. So I've been on a deep dive with that, and I've been I've been on a very deep personal journey. Relationship changes, challenges, growth have been huge. It feels like my heart has been kind of expanding, and the yeah, being a really grounded, real reality of what it's like, the labor, like that sense of labor, um, of love, that my it feels like my year has been, with really, I guess, really landing here and really being in my body and really being with my journey, and connecting to my soul, and being in that process in through relationship. That's yeah, it feels like there's been so much, that it's hard to really um say it all. And I imagine there's quite a few questions, so I'll leave it there. If anything, yeah, stands out. I've moved around the UK a lot as well, living in different places, different communities, meeting lots of different people. Yeah.
Cool, man, and yeah, enriching experience because it must be really beautiful experience to go from the different communities and learn what's working in some communities, what's not working in others, and also like the wealth of knowledge that comes through, being with so many different people who are walking that community path, which I think is a lot of health and wellness people are talking to at the moment. Everyone's um, there's a common dream emerging that, you know, it's living in community and living on land and really getting back in touch with those aspects of ourselves. And they, you know, last time you were on, we spoke a lot about permaculture, which was really interesting. And yeah, I'd love to like just open up, like, before we go into the main, about movement medicine that you've been doing, and like what kind of modalities have you been studying and practicing, and how you know, in the Czech system we sort of adopt a movement. So like how can movement be medicine in all of the different ways, and how can it enrich someone's life?
Yeah, yeah, it's well, in movement as medicine, I'd say movement medicine is essentially like, well, in one way, it's been engaging with whatever condition is present, whatever feeling and state in my body there is, whether that's an injury or pain or numbness or joy or the whole range. And so basically it's engaging with that and creating movement, allowing movement to happen from wherever the body is really at, whatever posture or sensation is at. For me, that's been my journey. And I've had a strong theme between Dr. Happy and Dr. Movement. And there's a sense of this question of what am I passionate about, all these questions that kind of come from what makes me happy, what am I passionate about, what do I love, that when I first started asking those questions was really difficult to answer it. Not difficult from my mind, like I could give a whole load of things that I love that I thought about, but to have my body really like feel into passion or feel into that alive sense of, oh, I feel really alive with this, I really love this, and I can feel it. Movement is like basically taking that question of what is my one love and coming into my body and exploring how intimate I am with that question. Yeah, like how much are my senses alive with that question. And so yeah, a lot of it's emotions. So the movement of emotions. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Just hearing you talk about it in this way it's like, you know, you clearly got like deep insight through what you've been exploring with it, and kind of brings up the word for me, like flow, and the flow of our lives. And you know, because like there's such a strong correlation between our thoughts, emotions, and how we're moving our body. So you know, the thoughts and emotions will create certain movement patterns, but also we can use movement somatically to also bring the flow back, the joy back to things somatically as well, as in this two-way street. Yeah, so I think like, yeah, for myself, like we're talking just before the podcast about, you know, the power of like the song and dance with, you know, making ourselves. You're saying how it's like been this archetypal process of for thousands of years across all different cultures to basically keep ourselves in a good, vibrant place. Yeah. So, what would your thoughts be on that, bud?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. I feel like it is, like you say, this two-way street of of potential, of mind to body and body to mind, and being in just one of those areas is potentially stagnant and not the flow. So I guess, yeah, I feel like that recognition that actually through movement and mind and focused attention, and it's like pulling together quite a lot. It's like learning to juggle almost, like playing an instrument. And how can I learn how to do multiple things at the same time? Which that's saying like, men can't multitask, but I think it's like, okay, I can learn how to move and feel and stay present with mind and a focus and a structure, and move between the two. And in that movement between the two, there starts like beginning to weave essentially a chord, right? Like you have threads of experience or sensation. And this is kind of how I experience it, and how I imagine many people experience the capacity to focus on a particular sensation or a particular idea. And that's like a single thread of like a spider's web, let's say. And then taking the different ideas and sensations in the body and feelings or emotions, and beginning to weave them together, and just moving with that. And that's essentially the flow. And it's I mean, I've learned how to like make chords, like physically, like nettle string and things like that. And it's a challenging process, like to do that manually, and even to like learn how to sew and thread. It's like, okay, I got to learn how to do this. My grandma made dresses and things for well-known people. She's passed away now, but she made them without knowing the patterns. So she was creating with this connection to something mentally and with her hands. So I guess that's in connection to like culturally what we've how we're here, and the sense of archetypal connection to story, like ideas, and enjoying those ideas, and also how do we actually bring those ideas into reality. Like Steiner's work with biodynamic farming, like his capacity to bring ideas from that place and then make them into a tangible system of farming, where the body's actually having to, do the things, prepare things, grow things. It's kind of like dance is kind of like that for taking kind of feelings that maybe don't feel like they're quite enduring, or like, fleeting love, or like, I feel good when I just have a little bit of this dopamine, or like I feel good when these moments in time when I do something externally that stimulates me. It's almost like learning to weave, connect with ideas, and move, and sort of be a creator, be a maker of sort of feelings, basically. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I need a little bit of so I'll leave it there. But yeah, I mean, creation. I mean, okay, like one little thing. I'll leave it this: creation myths, right? Like Inuit creation myths, to Native American creation myths, to all these different or fairy tale folklore stories that that feel so good to listen to them. And then it's like, okay, how do I like the hero's journey? How do I bring this into my life? How do I engage with this in my physical? Where am I now? And just feel how my body's moving. Listen to that information, staying connected to that story. So that those stories could be ancient, thousands of years old. It could be the story of a caveman, drawing in a cave. Like a lot of people love this kind of primal living and the millions of views on YouTube, and like they're sitting there in their office maybe, and like, well, how do I connect to that idea all the way over there? So yeah, it's practice and repetition. I'd say that's a big part of it. How do I get repetitions in, thousands of repetitions of connection to a story. Yeah, like yeah. So it's only so many times you can watch a video on something, and it's like, okay, great. Now, how do I repeat my connection to this? How do I willfully and engaging the will? So the dance and the movement of the body, it's like it's a willful act. So it's like soul nourishing because it's like I'm growing stronger by practicing. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a beautiful articulation, brother. Thank you for that. It's given me a new insight on the depth of philosophy or that is behind the movement. I know you're just like scratching the surface there because it's just like endless. But yeah, no, this makes me want to move, man. But man, I know how good you're feeling low. Do what you can. Use the willpower and try and engage that will to get up and move and dance, and you're always going to feel good for it. Um, yeah, yeah. I look forward to moving and grooving next with you, mate. Some stage in the future, maybe we jump, talking about doing some retreats later in the year. Yeah, so that'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Leo archetype. If that's all good, bud. So like Leo, this is like I love this sign. I see it as like a quite a special sign with a very special energy. So we're talking about Leo being ruled by the sun. So the sun being this center globe of life within our solar system that is lighting up everything and making life possible. Leo's also correlated with the heart, and is the fixed fire. So it's kind of like I heard like a very nice metaphor for it in terms of it kind of being like the fire in the center of the home, like the heart of the home that burns. And interestingly, that's called the hearth, and the word hearth is actually really close to heart as well. So which I find like quite an interesting like etiology with things. And yeah, so I mean, as a Leo, what would your general overview of the Leo archetype, and as well as your individual expression, how you feel it, what would that be, Ed?
Yeah. So speaking to the overall sense of the Leo, it's I'd say it's a sense of there's fire and there's kind of a spaciousness or an air, like a large when when people gather together for like festivals or for music events or for um, a show and everyone gathers in a large kind of home or a hearth, and it's I get this sense that on a large scale the Leo energy um is people gather, all different types of people gather to be warmed by a show, like to drop into story that warms the heart, like going to a good show, good theatre show, or a good music performance that just like reminds and is a remembering of the like the joys of life and the passions and the tragedies and like all songs and all shows, there's all kinds of stories, like ups and downs, and even the stories that kind of end badly. There's like a way of sharing that holds the whole thing in some sort of like it's an offering, like life is an offering. And um I feel like Leo is all about making life feel like an offering, no matter how it feels. Yeah. um yeah, yeah. yeah, I sense that. And personally, um, I go back to I received a birthday card from my mum, and it had a picture of me of 6 years old, and I go back to that age, and I my connection to getting up on stage and dancing as a not not as a showing off, right? Because I that's a different story, but as a celebration. I was like, wow, this feels so great. Like I feel so great now. I want to dance and express it to the world. And there's even a sense of I'm it's cultivating. It's like cultivating the fire for everyone. Um then there's that which within like a theatre show or something where people have kind of agreed to collect and gather with that intention, like, oh, I'm going to this place to feel good, to be with others, to celebrate. That is that's like a very structured and safe place to then cultivate that and then to feel more free to express it. So there, as a child, I felt so kind of free to express myself. I could get up on stage, and I did, even when it wasn't an invitation. I felt so like, this is the vibe, that I just did it. Yeah. And yeah, when that then, but then my personal experience is also the other side of that, which is in school, and perhaps not a level of safety at times, where that same energy then gets received as showing off or putting other people down. So the fire that burns, it's kind of like I'm having a good time or I'm feeling really great right now and other people aren't. Yeah. So um yeah, there's a sense of like learning to be okay with upsetting other people, because it's not really upsetting them. It's just illuminating the fact that some people are having a bad time, which is a really important step to make change. Is first of all recognize what you're actually unhappy about, right? So my what I'm saying is my personal experience with this Leo energy is it can upset people as well, and in a sense that the and in that way because it's this kind of this tension, because I've actually wanted to share the good feelings, but it's had the opposite result. So it's also been quite a self-reflective process for me. I've also got my moon in Leo, Cancer kind of cusp of Leo, and there's this kind of desire for nurturing and also that. So it's kind of like, yeah, I've experienced it as a very self-reflective path, and trying to understand how healing can come about through creative expression. And yeah, that's really taken me through into this kind of movement medicine, which recently the summer long dance was just a big party and so healing. And just yeah, that and even working with you more intimately with the cacao ceremonies, and how healing it can be has been in my experience to reopen up my heart and to express again, and take the lessons as well, like to receive the lessons of how to take care of other people as well in that. And yeah, I guess it's a refine I feel like it's a refining process that I'm with this Leo energy of staying connected to what I really love and enjoying that. And it's like one of these questions of enjoying being alone with oneself. And I don't really feel like we're ever really alone, but in terms of not being with others, and this Leo energy of sense of there's such a desire to connect with others, but can I also learn to enjoy my own energy whilst I'm not with others, so that then I can be a bit freer in how I am with others, and know how to be more sensitive to my expressing my energy, like managing my energy, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. um and I really feel this pull towards the power of it for healing, like to how it can be a healing and a transformative energy. And I think so many things can. Fire it's definitely a powerful one. And the Leo, this it feels like a huge drive to kind of bring the fire into the world. And yeah, there's a when I say that, there's a sense of, for myself, it's like when I'm hurt, why would I, when if I'm hurt underneath there and my expression is full of this, then there's also that kind of out there. It can be a strong feedback as to how I'm actually feeling inside. So it's quite like, I feel like my journey of the Leo is like life is quite a strong mirror to how I'm actually feeling, because other people respond to my expression and pick up on how I'm feeling underneath. And it's kind of come full fold for me recently into relationship to music, and how music can be a vessel for all of this energy and all that I'm feeling inside, and how it can hold all of it, and learning to structure, essentially, bring structure to fire energy. Yeah.
Oh wow, man! Thank you. There's so much in what you just shared. Thank you. It's like really, yeah. I love how you opened the play and performance aspect of it, because this is this aspect of the zodiac wheel is very focused around that shining light and the arts and dance and music and merriment, festivals. This time of gathering and community, and kind of, as you were speaking, I was kind of like seeing like the lion pack, like the pride of lions, and like the playful cubs, and like the gathering in community of the lions, and can really feel the sunshine and the heart in every one of your expressions. And it's really interesting what you're saying about the kind of like the performance, and then making kind of, and then people feeling bad off the back of that. And it brings up a few interesting dynamics. I can imagine, because we want to be in our authentic selves and authentic energy, and not to contract into a different energy based off of what others are experiencing. I do, but at the same time, it needs to be handled with a sensitivity, because I guess like it's kind of like shining so bright, and then it's kind of like it can maybe make it challenging for others to shine, but at the same time it's also an invitation for them to shine and maybe join, because it's kind of like if you're shining, it also helps other people to shine, if they're looking at that perspective of looking at the person who's shining as a person to be inspired by, rather than to maybe compare themselves to. And then as the person who is shining and maybe causing that contraction in others, you're presented with like quite a difficult dilemma, I guess. It's like, when you feel the contraction from the others, you've got a choice of keep shining, or do I diminish to make the other person feel better? And then maybe through that process of contraction and this diminishment of the light, like taking through that process, taking something away from yourself through contracting into an expression that's not authentic, but also then potentially taking something away from the people who are feeling the contraction, because then there's not that polarity that they can use to then maybe grow themselves. It's like I could share something about, like, if I'm dancing quite loudly, which I can do. Sometimes I can feel that from others, and then there's that I feel that feeling in myself, like, oh, shall I tone it down because I don't want it to feel bad? But then I'm like, no, like, it's kind of like, but then it's just like, it's this like interesting tightrope, because then it's just like, but now it's like, now it's in the thought process. Where am I kind of like going to go with this? So does that kind of like resonate or like illustrate things at all?
Yeah, I can really feel when I hear you the sensitivity and like the loudness of your expression. And I have received the pleasure of your vibrant music and expression. And yeah, when I'm open to receive, it's so warming. And it's the resonance. And yeah, I'd say it is dancing in small groups, and which I do quite regularly, and noticing whether my energy is with them or with myself. And um yeah, that really feels quite strong. So it's like, oh, okay, notice that I'm dancing like this, I'm expressing myself loudly, and now I'm noticing the other person's process, and maybe they're shrinking. And for the Leo, it's like not making the shrinking wrong, and embracing whatever response I have in myself in seeing someone else shrink, and bringing the Leo energy to that, bringing the warmth and the expression to however it feels in myself to see someone else retracting, and to my own response to that. So it's like basically kind of keep embracing it all and keep giving it expression, which I feel in your words, like this kind of openness to what is happening. Yeah, so yeah, it does resonate. Yeah.
Like, and how do you find it within yourself? Like, maybe when you're feeling this contraction from others, do most of the time you just carry on going with things, or is it just very much a like a moment to moment thing and feeling what's happening, or like, yeah.
Yeah, well, it really depends on who and where I'm at. It always changes. I'd say it's never the same, and yet things that aren't resolved do repeat. So um the the beauty is that once I pay enough attention and awareness, and don't push, and just allow to keep embracing, the feelings can really change. So beginning with like, oh, this feels really like they don't want to be around me, they feel really uncomfortable in themselves, and therefore they feel uncomfortable around me, don't want to be close to them. And sometimes it's just that awareness is enough, that okay, I've noticed that, and I keep moving, and I keep being with it, and eventually it's almost like a thawing out, and eventually it's like, oh, I'm a bit bored with that now. It's like I'm a bit tired of that. And then it's almost like that's the beginning of the release of whatever that feeling is, or that dynamic with someone. And then it's like, oh yeah, let that wash through. And what am I feeling now? Oh, relief that that's let go. Oh, right. It's almost like there's a washing process that often has to happen, I find, for a good 20 to 30 minutes in any dance. And once that washing and process is done, it's almost like the shared washing. Like, oh yeah, I was feeling really awkward. Oh, they were feeling really awkward. Oh yeah. Oh, we were both feeling. Oh, really? Oh wow. And then it's like the connection's made. Yeah. Yeah.
So is that usually the first 20-30 minutes when people are just getting into the groove, maybe feeling like, oh, maybe a little bit self-conscious here and like conscious of others, but then it all comes together with the groove.
Yeah, with the groove, yeah. And I haven't needed alcohol to achieve that, and I've repeated that many, many times. Though I guess alcohol is kind of like a really intense wash. It's like a solvent that's like trying to dissolve that awkward emotions that are kind of a bit icky, and it works, but so does movement. And I've found that in clubbing environments with alcohol that people have also, where I've not drank, I still meet people in that place. Right, I can still get to that place of connection with them. It's just less. It's a bit less coherent. It's still fun, but it's a little bit less coherent. And then when they sober up, it's like all of those challenges are still very much there. So yeah, 20 to 30 minutes. If it's I guess it's kind of like taking meditation and the practice of focusing on oneself for long enough. It's like, if I can just focus on myself, however I'm feeling, for 20 to 30 minutes and keep with it and keep moving while staying aware of who's around me and where I'm at, and that eventually, if I give it enough movement, if I offer enough movement, it's like my dance is an offering to myself and to whatever this is that is arising. Eventually, it's like warming up. It's essentially warming up, like in sports. It's like, oh, I don't really want to be here today. It's like I used to go to athletics all the time. And the process of warming oneself up to something that's like, feels like a challenge. It's like, okay, yeah, cultivate the fire, keep moving, breathing. Oh, I actually feel really good here. I feel really good doing this. I feel really good with everyone. But it's just, yeah, I guess, I'm going off a bit of a tangent there, so I'll leave it.
You're good, man. You're good. That's that interesting. Yeah. Cool, man. Cool. I'd love to ask next. What would you consider to be some of the higher expressions of Leo? And it feels like we've already touched on quite a few of them with how you've been speaking about certain things. And what would you consider to be some of the shadow sides of Leo?
Yeah, so I'd say the higher aspects of a Leo would be and this is from personal connection as well. It's a sense of grounding in myself, a connection to like like when I look at it, like anyone, I'm trying to make this relatable, like looking up at the stars and being like, wow, or a shooting star, it's like, wow, or the moon when it's looking particularly funky, or the feeling of the sun when it's just like you just really want to feel that warmth, or the morning sunrise or the sunset, this kind of magical, mystical sense of life that kind of feels tangible at certain points. The higher expression of the Leo is, for me, learning to connect with that and allow it to percolate within my system and really just hold it, embrace that feeling in myself, love feeling that, love how I love feeling that, and then being in relationship to others whilst feeling that and offering it out and really seeing it in others, like seeing it in you, Jess, like, oh, like I see it in you, and let you know that, like, through whatever music, movement, the way my face is, or yeah, just like the intention is really the key, or the feeling underneath that creates the intention to then share something. So I guess to embrace the shadow as a place of rest, as well as a place of like perceived negativity, and also felt negativity, like felt pain in the shadow. I'd say I feel quite entwined with this kind of light and shadow, where grief and sorrow and like feeling of just so much pain can often come with that high light expression. Something that I've been with recently is sharing music and being seen in sharing music, and actually opening my eyes and seeing everyone seeing me. And there's been such a feeling of grief move in me to be held in that I can't quite explain to a level, because I'm still digesting the experience. And of all the people around me, not all of them, but many of them reflected back, and it felt like there was sort of a shared sense of knowing, in connection, that they felt me. They felt the way I played the flute. They felt my expression, and it brought them sadness and tears, but not in a way that was uncomfortable. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the shadow of it is, where does the joy come from? The shadow is like my love and appreciation of the music and the feeling so amazing. Where's that really come from? Like, what's the source of that love? And when I drop into my life experience, and when I connect in my imagination about how my parents and their parents' experiences were, there's been a lot of hardship and a lot of felt pain and suffering and loss, that there's this kind of real grounding in that's the shadow. That's almost like the compost. That's the dark side of it. Or that has been. That's the past, at least. That's the story. I don't believe that we have to continue creating pain in order to create joy. I don't think that that's a necessity, but it's definitely the sort of the current reality that's unfolding for me in my relationships and with people. And yeah, it's yeah, I guess embracing the shadow with awareness, so that actually that doesn't have to keep being recreated. Because I think unconsciously there's some sort of honoring and loyalty to what has happened before. What has been the pain that's meant that's happened, that might actually be carried out unconsciously if it's not held in some sort of awareness. It's like the grief rituals that feel so healing, and the feeling of really deep sorrow that often, when my dad passed away 5-6 years ago, it's like there was an awakening sense that I wanted to feel sorrow, but I couldn't. It was so in my mind, because the feeling of sorrow was too much for my heart at that point in time to feel. So it's kind of baby steps, I think, and a lot of support with this kind of energy, with this Leo energy. So the more supported and safe I can feel, the more powerful my expression and the light, and then the deeper the sorrow. So it's almost like all of it coexists to some degree. And sometimes it's like I can be in one end and be like, oh wow, but then there's something that happens when in that extreme, which is almost like a dissolving. It's like, oh, it's like the fragrance of a flower dissipating, and then having to reconnect to the roots. So yeah, it's that, yeah, there's a fragility, right, to the high expression. So there's a sense of where to bring that, like with that fragility and that delicateness of like the fine flavors of life that seem to disappear so quickly. It's like, how can I take those experiences that are feeding, it's almost like they're really feeding the imaginal realms or the dream world or the Dr. Happy, or yeah, and then allowing those to really matter in that dream world. Like that's like a real place. Just because it's called imagination doesn't mean it's not real. And then allow that to nourish the roots, allow that to nourish my physical body, and relearning how to do this, remembering how to do this, because it's almost like a bit of a lost art to some degree, in any way, in the Western culture that I've grown up in. So yeah, I guess the shadow, what I'm saying there is the shadow of it is addiction and being addicted to the highs and wanting more and more highs. Like, where does that come from? Yeah, so understanding that more deeply. Yeah, there's so much more I feel like I could dive into there, but I'll just let it rest and see what you've got to say, Jess.
It's incredibly deep, my friend. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, your flute playing, by the way, is just I love when you play. Really, really, yeah. In my opinion, and not just my opinion, of quite a few other people's opinions. You know, you've really got some artistry there. I think and feel, and you like with your playing, I can sense the depth that's behind it, and it's really interesting to hear that. You know, of this grief experience that comes through when you're playing. And I'm just wondering, is this quite a prominent? Is the grief experience something that comes through quite a lot when you're playing, or is it yeah, sometimes, but not other times? And I'm wondering if it came through, was coming through when I've heard you play as well, because yeah, it's just like your music is very different to in the few times that I've heard. It's really touched a very deep part of me each time, and yeah, there's some real magic there. So yeah, what is this? Do you feel coming from this well of emotion that you're feeling whilst you're playing?
Oh, thanks, Jess. I feel when you shared that um, I felt myself being touched in that deep place, hearing you say that, which is, yeah, it feels really meaningful. And and like you say, it does actually feel so common for me that it's is if I haven't felt the grief when I start to play, there'll be some feeling or sensation that begins to awaken as I play. Sometimes that's just a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes it's mentally not wanting to play. And then sometimes it just emotion moves and it's like, oh, yeah. So I've often experienced my playing as being very challenging personally, and other people have then often come to me and said, "Wow, was that you playing? Keep playing. It sounded so great." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was struggling the whole time there. Yeah, it's almost like a blessing and a curse at the moment, but yeah, it's yeah. There's a I was listening to a podcast by the Emerald the other day, and he was saying that flutes, there was some sort of ancient sort of writing down or passed on story about flutes that they basically bring tears. And it was the first time I heard it, but apparently flutes have for found. I think the oldest one they found last or 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, was 50,000 years old, bare bone. Before that, the oldest was a mammoth, and before that was a vulture. And I think it's still the oldest instrument. And that's the saying, it brings tears. It's the wind, and it's like it's the wind of the heart that kind of brings tears. And I feel very connected to that imagery of connecting to the emotion and the flow into the earth, into the earth, the conscious, and essentially giving more awareness to what it might mean if the earth is alive, what it might mean if we are connected to a living, loving planet. Like, what might that mean? How might that feel? And the disconnect that may be inherently so painful in that. And I've been doing quite a lot of constellations in the last few years, family constellations training between groups and privately. And my mind's just gone blank. Something about constellations training, constellation sessions, family constellations. Yeah.
You're talking about the wind of the instrument being connected with the potential, the beating heart of the sentient planet, and then moved into family constellations.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a tangent, but it felt so connected when I started talking about it. Yeah, now it's gone. Maybe it'll come back.
All good, man. All good. Like, I just like as you speak, it's cool when you speak. It brings up so much imagery and connections. Like, because there's some really interesting things in there in terms of what like potential correlations in the we're talking about the beating heart of the earth essentially, and this heart of humanity is as these beings that are working well, hopefully working with the earth to create and share life. And the wind instrument, the wind is the element of the heart chakra, and also the heart is also associated with fire and Leo as well. And I think there's something really interested in the grief with the playing, and the grief is one of the emotions that is very correlates with the heart chakra, and some say maybe would affect the heart chakra, but also as well we're looking at the shadow and the light, and one both existing and one having one, I guess, like the joy not being possible without the grief. And it's just like all of these themes are kind of like percolating and constellating as you're talking. And what strikes me is that when you're playing with grief and creating something truly special, it's touching other people's hearts really deeply and opening up into something for them within the heart. So it's interesting because as you're talking, I'm getting this like new sense of realization between the in how love and grief are so intertwined, so like inseparable in so many ways, and how maybe grief isn't this thing that blocks the heart chakra, which some people would say, but actually grief can potentially be something that can really deeply access the heart and help us to actually experience and move into greater depths of love for ourselves and others. And this is what I feel, knowing more about where like your music is coming from, where the like what you may be potentially touching. So the grief, because the grief of loss and mourning, it can create this freezing, and within that freezing isn't so much opportunity to access either the grief or the love. It's just frozen, like, and not able to move, and it's kind of like through experiencing another person's grief, or through the sharing of a story of that touches the heart, then it strikes me as something that can really help to actually open that wellspring where it's very, very much needed. Because the grief process is a beautiful process, and the mourning process is a very beautiful, so needed process that I think a lot of people get closed down on. So yeah, no, thank you. It's kind of given me this like different understanding of how grief and love are so how they can walk in hand. Not always do they have to walk hand in hand, but often they will and do walk hand in hand as a really like needed and beautiful dynamic between the two.
Yeah, as you share, I feel my whole body moving with tingles and waves of appreciation for that recognition that you're sharing. And yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it feels so real when you share that. I've got a few stories, it's okay to share now.
Yeah, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. Well, what one is just a simple one of elephants that I heard recently, that was how they will go to visit lost ones, like the elephant bone graveyard. And I've got this image of like the elephant pack, and I imagine how much love that, well, even just that imagery, whether someone believes that there's actually love between the elephants or not, the imagery of a family of elephants and a tribe of elephants moving together, and the strength of that, and also their commitment to visiting those bones on as a ritual, and seemingly displaying tears and emotion. And there's a sense of the necessity of that ritual on a regular basis to keep people together, to keep tribe and the value of life. Essentially, it's almost like it transcends so many conflicts to realize how precious life is. Because surely, I mean, as I'm saying, I'm like, why would you? The only reason I would harm life is if I'm not aware of its value, its preciousness, of its beauty, of its. So to actually go and connect to the loss of life, the loss of loved ones, as a necessary fundamental practice to appreciating those that are living around me. And the story that came to me was the constellations, was really forgotten stories of lost ones. So the Irish and the English is a common one that I've got in my personal genetics of Irish on my mother's side. And the story was shared to me from someone who was very connected to this himself, of how it's almost epigenetic. And this is something from the Klinghardt Institute, and actually looking at epigenetic expression, in the test, with the medical equipment, and seeing how constellations changes epigenetic expression of people with chronic challenges, health challenges. And essentially, let's say, like, my Irish ancestry 4 generations back, the pain of loss of life that happened with the disconnect from that culture, that happened within the Irish themselves, that didn't want to feel the loss, and with the people who created a lot of harm, whether it's like the way the English related to the Irish, or whether it's the way the Germans and the Polish, or these are the terms German, English. It all kind of gets lost in the fact that there was a relationship between different people, and then in the sense that the frozenness that you're referring to is like the forgetting, and like forgetting because it was too painful to feel how much it was to lose that culture, because they had so much joy, like the Irish, even the Irish mascots, and like the pixies, and the kind of the love of nature and their beautiful music and dance, like to lose that and lose that connection, it's like, oof, like I've got to go there to reawaken that. I've got to feel what it means to lose that in order to have it. It's kind of like a paradox. It's like, this is like maybe an antidote to consumeristic culture. It's like, you got to lose it. You got to feel what it means to lose it, and then you can really take care of it. So yeah, yeah. And with my own particular kind of strong flavor is a lot to do with my father and the sun energy and the warmth that comes from, I imagine, many fathers, many people's relationships with their dads or their granddads or their uncles, and that sense of warmth and blessing and appreciation, even just seeing, like feeling like I'm, as a child, I've been seen by someone as being, just being a miracle of life. Like, wow, you're amazing. And I guess there's again with the constellations, this sense of so many stories in our culture of men disappearing after the war, or a loss of that feeling. Again, it's like disconnect. It's like, oh, I had a beautiful man and he went to war, and afterwards it was violence and disruption and pain or loss, or just, and it's like freezing because it's almost like the sun has been lost. And so some of the deeper threads in me have been around that. And I'm still with a lot of frozenness there. And it's like, it's almost like, what is the solution there for me and for, I imagine, many people? It's like, well, the sun still shines. Like the sun still comes up every day, that hasn't gone anywhere. And it's like taken me to really, really open myself up to more native and indigenous cultures and what their stories really mean. It's like to go and wake up with the sun and to be with that, and how hard that has been for me lately to actually wake up with the sun. And it's like, why am I finding that so hard? And I can be hard on myself with that, but that it's very different to realizing I'm finding it hard because of this troubled attachment relationships with my dad and my granddad, and the way that they it's this kind of like downstream effect that it's like pressurizing me to go, I need to find a way, because if I repeat this kind of closed down response, like I can kind of see what happens in my life in relationships, the pain that's created. And I'm like, what? I'm not meaning to create this pain, but it's because I've lost my connection to the sun. and it's also, my dad lost his connection to the sun that shines every day. And actually it kind of weaves back into the Irish culture that I feel like they had the connection with nature, and the way that many kind of colonizing cultures went and really did some damage to other families and tribes that had that really root connection to the earth and to the sun and to cosmovisions of really, really loving things, really loving forces in the world. And it's like, shum, oh, I don't have access to that anymore. It's like, what I do to another, I do to myself kind of feeling. So yeah, there's so much, and there's so much in that. And the most kind of grounded mirror to that, to like really just make it really clear, it's like relationship. How do women feel towards me? Yeah, like how do and men, but yeah, how do people who are particularly sensitive and they feel things, how do they feel around me? What's going on in me? Because there's so much held in that dynamic that it's a mirror. And it's not like necessarily that it's going to be solved in that, for me, in those relationships, but it really helps me face what I need to face, because I really want a love relationship and a partnership that's going to really like feel great. Like I really like so much, that's my own like real desire for life. And yet there's so much like pain in it that it's like I really got to do the work, because yeah, yeah, that's kind of yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, brother. Like, really, really thank you for your openness. And yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like comes to me to kind of to share that, like, you feel like sunshine. It's like I think there's a sun that shines in all of us, and the Leo, is associated with the sun, and consider yourself as someone who is very much shining. And yeah, it's interesting within astrology. There's kind of like they consider it like two father archetypes in the celestial bodies. You've got the sun, which is it's kind of like benevolent father figure that you're describing, and then there's like Saturn, which is more the kind of right, you're 18, let's kick you out of the door now, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, like as an like our archetypal concept. What does the sun? I know you shared quite a lot about the sun just now, but like, what does it mean for you in terms of your quest to find that light, and then how do you feel that others can harness that energy to shine within themselves and find that light within themselves?
Yeah, I'd say I'd say there's so many ways. I feel like what's been working for me is one thing is simply getting out into the sunshine and bringing my focus and my awareness to the sun. And it's something I've learned from Wild Rights a few years ago with nature-based work, soul in nature work. It's how can I give what's going on for me or what I'm questing for, like this search for light or the feeling of the sun and that warmth and cultivating that, nurturing it. How can I take my challenge and give it to nature to hold for me and to help me, like as a university or a school, and because I feel like the isolation, it's like the plants. There's a book on plants and how when they're stressed, they give off less light. Plants give off less light when they're stressed, and it's like hiding. It's like I don't want to be seen right now. So in the gym, I mean, it was like, oh, I haven't been to the gym for ages, and I don't feel so great, so I don't want to go. It's like when we're having a challenging experience, there's a survival tendency to shut down. I think the polyvagal theory that I've touched on recently has helped me understand this a lot. So that's really worth looking. I found that really helpful to look at how my nervous system responds like an animal at times when I'm stressed and I'm giving off less light. I'm feeling like it's dangerous to share my light with the world. I might be outcasted. There's so much history of people being punished for sharing their light because of many contexts. The religion and is very strong in, there's one form of light and warmth, and that's this particular way of seeing the world. And if you don't agree that, if that's not your experience, then you're in trouble. So then, and that's still going on today, right? And you could look at it in terms of economy and being like, if you don't value the dollar or if you don't value this currency, then you're going down. It's like if you don't value our light, it's a very the competitive kind of dream that I think leads to a lot of shutdown. So essentially, what's helped me, and I think helps everyone, because everyone's kind of aware, like becoming aware, at least to some degree, of nature and how nature's in trouble. And there's like an innocence in nature of like, wow, there's no matter how an animal responds, it's like, oh, that's cute. Oh, wow, like I really feel that, I mean, maybe less so with like domesticated animals and dogs that bark at people. That tends to bring negative kind of things. But essentially, like if I'm trying to connect to my light, it's almost like, look, everyone's got the light. Everyone has the shine. It's just how much am I hiding it? How much am I covering it up? And why? And really connecting to my like reptilian brain and the necessity for doing that, but also shaking that off. It's like that's happened. But the process of shaking that off is, really just paying attention to what opens me up. What do I need to feel safe again? And coming back into connection with people who like love me. And maybe that means letting go of your culture and your way you've been brought up and the people and your friends and people that are your friends. But maybe you're all supporting each other to stay shut down, you know. So it's some like kind of hero's journey perhaps to go on, to individuate and go, where's my new tribe that support me in coming out of my shell and allowing my light to shine. And the body is such a resource because it's honest. It's like, I don't feel safe here, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, I trust myself. So it's also a really nice way of connecting and loving. I find loving myself to go, no matter what someone else is thinking about me, no matter what their opinion is, whatever their story, like, what's my body saying right now? It's still afraid. Yeah, because it's sensitive. It's a sensitive, wild being, even if it's been domesticated and learned to sit in a classroom chair for days and days and days. You know, the desire, like the Australian saying, you can kill the kangaroo, but you can't kill the kangaroo dreaming. I feel like I have that particularly strong in me, where just because I learned how to sit down and shut up and hide my light in school so much, it's still in me, and I experienced that as that shutting down is now. So the ripe points, the ripe fruit, I think, is pain and symptoms, because it's almost like my body saying, oh yeah, it's okay, I've had enough of this now. I'm kind of bored of however it is to hold this posture or to stop my light from emitting. So it's a bit like this kind of trusting in our body enough. It's like, oh, okay, I'm in pain and I've learned how to hold this really well. You know, maybe I work in a bank now and I'm, you know, really doing well, but I'm having back pain every day, even though I've got loads of money. And, you know, it's like, how am I hiding my light? And then why has that felt so unsafe? And it might shake up your whole reality. You know, it might absolutely just clear so much away that it is, you know, it is a hero's journey. and that's like, yeah, that's, yeah, I can say, watch out. Yeah.
Yeah, man, fire's hot. It came up there like drew an interesting link between when we were talking about the closing down the posture and individuation. It's the solar plexus, third chakra, our personal power, individuation, stepping into our light, stepping into our greatness as individuals. It's that solar center, that energy center of power, and you know, when we do shut down, it's that closing, that physical diminishment of the posture to actually close down on that energy center, correlating with not shining the light. And you know, I think it's it's kind of like looping back to what we were talking about earlier. I think this is why it's so important to really shine and be there and be in that authentic expression. And you know, if it's triggering for people, then okay, it's good for them, because they're able to see their processes if they're in that state of awareness, and then maybe work with that. And yeah, it's yeah, mate. It's like, I'm loving this conversation, by the way. This is like freaking deep, man. Yeah. Brother, I'd love to pivot to the last and probably the biggest theme, which we won't even scratch the surface on this podcast, because it's a whole series of podcasts, which maybe we could do over the next few years. But the heart and love. I'd love to open up a little bit with you, and this infinite intelligence of this treasure that is within our chest, this beautiful vortex of energy that gives us life and propels us through this world, living with love. And you know, we've spoken a little bit about, you know, the heart of the earth and heart of humanity, and also, you know, the sun is it's the beating heart of our solar system that in many ways provides life in the same way that our hearts within our bodies provide energy and warmth and love and light to our lives. So big question, but feelings on love and the intelligence of the heart. I heard a great saying the other day, by the way, artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, artificial. Whoa, we need some artificial ambassadors. Yeah, Yeah. Um, yeah. Wow. Well, I feel like you carry and take care of so much heart as in the time I've known you. Um, that to receive that question from you, and how much my heart has opened in relationship in the last few years. Um, and being with that motion of pulsing, and I'm with this metaphor of the heart, like I'm going back to biology and how chambers of the heart open and contract to create flow for blood to move. I feel like with the right lens, basic anatomy can be a really helpful thing, like etymology. And there's a flow of blood from the body into the heart, and from the heart into the lungs, and then back from the lungs, and then back into the body, creating like a continuous motion. And those chambers have to move, they have to open and receive, and they have to close. So there's a sense of welcoming contraction as in connection to movement, taking what I receive from my body and from the physical reality and oxygenating it. Keep breathing. Oh yeah. Oh. However heavy or weighty my experience might feel, which I've received this comment a few times. Oh, Eddie, you feel so heavy. Like, good. That means breathe. Because I feel like the heart has this kind of apex shape as well. And it comes down. It's like an arrow into the earth, piercing the earth. A bit like the arrow. We've got all of these kind of symbols in our culture. It's like the heaviness or the pain, and bringing the aeration in, and then sending that back to the body. And no matter what I receive back, keep flowing, keep welcoming in the air, and keep sending it back. And so it's kind of like relationality and movement, that I'm really with that sense of my heart. And coming together with people and doing that is really epic. Has been really epic. And recognizing it and just going back into my memory of times when that's happened through dancing together, there's something that happens when we move together in a simple kind of way, whether that's the Brazilian partner dance that I kind of was one of the first dances that I kind of started learning as an adult. There's these basic steps that everyone knows, and there's some moves that we can do on top of that, but essentially we're all moving together and there's music happening, and that continuous movement, no matter how many mistakes or toes I step on, there's keep dancing and keep taking the basic steps. And yeah, there's, in terms of love, oof, I'm in a place of so much practicing what I preach. Past relationships that I really froze in, and run away from, are like re-emerging for me to say hello and to bring movement there, and to see what was frozen in my heart. That meant I was almost like my heart response became my actual response. I can't say, I don't know what to say. I don't feel the love anymore. It's just, I've got to go. Like, and the challenge of being with that, and going, okay, well, it's almost like can be overwhelming, what's there in the heart. And there was a metaphor. I've been studying movement medicine, and it was saying how sometimes it's like an ice block. It's better if we just chip at it, wearing our wetsuit, dry suit, geared up with our oxygen tank, chipping away at this ice tank from a warm place, not going like Icarus kind of style and trying to do it all in one go, because it's like we are sensitive, and it's kind of like paying attention to how it feels to get closer into my heart. It's almost like irony or paradox. It's like if I go too much into my heart, I might get overwhelmed. My body responds, my emotions responds, if I get too close to love, it can shut me down because of the history. And I feel like it's really connected maybe to like what I've heard through constellations again, and also Gabor Mate is coming to mind with his work on the body, and Gestalt therapy with like embryonic development and the time in the womb. And so much of what I'm trying to come to is how my heart and how we all share this experience of being in the womb in such a formative time, that's so deeply formative. Apparently, this is from Klinghardt. He's saying most of people's problems and challenges in their life, and for me, that just means challenges with love, come from challenges there in the womb where there wasn't perhaps enough love or nurturing. So it's kind of like the subject of love is being having open enough awareness that perhaps what I'm experiencing now is kind of altogether, like I've got to do this with everyone, because I wasn't meant to be born into the world on my own or within just 3 or 4 people. I was designed to be loved by many, many people, to be celebrated by many, many people, all the way through my pregnancy, my time in the womb, and first, like my early life. I was meant to be loved and loved and loved and loved and celebrated to create, I imagine, like with all these people loving me, a community, a tribe of loving me. That's each member's heart sharing and seeing the beauty helps my heart to be as big as the tribe. So that's like the one heart. It's like my one heart was formed by, and I think that there's this kind of to be loved and then love to be taken away is very painful. And I feel like there's so much of that. Like, here I am and now I'm not. And I feel that so much in my own relationships where I've had it mirrored back to me, like, oh, you're here and now you're not. And it's like, yeah, wow. Like, that's been my experience time and time again, where I repeat that. Oh, here I am and now I'm not. And I'm like, well, that patterning is feels like my culture. Like, there's someone that loves me and now they're gone, and there's another one now and now they're gone. And it's like this real need to create some sort of sense of safety and structure, of consistency and commitment from the people around me, that allows my heart to open. And really identifying that as a necessity for me to grow in love. It's kind of like the nitty gritty. It's like being really honest. Like, look, we've all most likely experienced a lot of temporary love for whatever reason, whatever the story is, non-commitment, like, and how painful that is, and how that's going to shape my behavior. And being honest, like, if I'm going to heal, I have to stay committed and consistent. And it may, I may die in a freak accident or something that's still going to hurt the other person's heart. However, that's out of my control. Like, what am I in control of my choices? So it's just, again, it's this kind of sense of the empowerment, that solar power coming into the heart, and that fire of the heart staying committed. I with one little thing there of like, how do my parents, I've been with that just today, of how my parents loved each other, how did they show their consistency and their commitment to one another, and what lessons did I kind of get programmed with about that, and just looking and just observing to bring some more freedom and some more breathing space and some more choices, so I can be a bit more kind to myself with why I do things. So it's kind of it's it feels like a huge, it feels like such a meaningful it feels like such an alive topic for me. I'm kind of in it. So I'm still squirming a bit with the whole experience, if I'm honest.
Maybe that's why we're having this
Yeah.
conversation. And it very much feels like as you're speaking, and I'm kind of like reflecting on your words and feeling the aliveness for myself as well, and it feels like safety being such a necessary prerequisite for love of many different kinds, or maybe any kind. And then I think to other people, and the safety needs to be there for the love to really flourish. It's kind of like almost like the safety that the masculine containment can provide for the love of the heart to open and blossom into. And then it's just like, it's really interesting because safety looks completely different for every single person. It's just like I'm kind of seeing myself in you, but from a different theme, because I maybe we'll maybe perceive safety in a slightly different way. It makes me think of like a past relationship I had, and up until this relationship, the relationships prior weren't, let's say, in the kind of like healthiest dynamics. They were kind of like in like more of the codependent space, and maybe what I was thinking was true love within those relationships. Actually, on reflection, it's just like, was that really the actual true high expression of love? Well, maybe in parts, but for the most part, actually, if I was honest, like it probably wasn't. And then I remember, after a certain relationship went a certain way, I sent a very strong signal of like, no more of this energy. Like, I'm like done with this dynamic, and also recognizing the part that I was playing in that dynamic, because it's both people that create a codependent dynamic. And then what happened is, the next relationship I was in, that dynamic had completely disappeared, because I did like a lot of work between those relationships, and now I had like what was probably the first really truly really healthy interdependent relationship, and it was a completely new thing for me. And there was a certain point at which the healthy higher expression of love was there and potentially coming in, and I completely freaked out, basically. And because like I suddenly didn't feel, I still kind of like, if I think about it, I guess it rocked my sense of safety, because there was a number of belief systems attached to love and the safety of feeling love, due to the certain things within my parental structure, which I think that, and I think that's why each person's internalization of safety is completely different, because of those different parental influences that we had, and those different parental dynamics. But what happened with myself is that I freaked out, didn't know why I freaked out at the time, and then I ended up actually ending the relationship, because it was kind of getting too close to that love that I was actually deeply fearing, because of the connotations of what that meant, because of what happened with certain things with my parents. And there's I won't go into it in detail, but there was a certain split when I was like quite young, and certain things that happened afterwards, which gave me a really strong negative coloring around love because of what happened within that, and then that later on then played out in my relationship completely unconsciously. But it was like really interesting because it was the first healthy relationship and first actual inkling of what I saw as being like real, true, authentic love. And my sense of safety was completely rocked, and that was it. And it was only afterwards where I was just like, oh my god, what just actually happened? That was insane. So I think we have like so much guarding and so much wounding, and there's so much encased around this beautiful center of emotion that I really love what you say about the chipping away, because it's not like this like huge heart. Well, maybe we can have certain huge heart opening experiences to create like a really beautiful window to see those greater realms of love, and use that as an opportunity to move closer to practicing greater and deeper degrees of love. But so we have those windows through maybe transcendental experiences, but then most of the time it is this chipping away, this de-walling, this debarring, this it's the shining it's shining as well, because it's the same as shutting down of the plexus. We're shutting down the heart, so it's like it's shutting down the light of the heart, I guess, and chipping away that ice, or to allow that light to shine forth to the benefit of those ourselves and all of those around us. So I think it's this continual journey. And just to kind of finish off on this riff, like it's really interesting because when like we've been talking like a bit recently about 4 stages of love, and sex and violence, conditional, empathetic and compassionate, and unconditional. So for anyone listening, it's Paul Chek's model on the 4 stages of love. And I'm currently in this dance of between the empathetic and compassionate and the conditional, and it's just like when the walling happens, or the loss of the connection, and maybe due to stress or some life situation, or being in the mind, there's a tendency to move into the conditional space. And conditional, for anyone who's not familiar with that, is like, I love you if, I love you when you do this for me and you do that for me. My love for you is based on the condition, if the conditions are met. And then I think a big part of my personal work is recognizing when it is slipping into that conditional, and then I need to do what I can do to get back into that empathetic and compassionate, which is more I love you no matter what, and I love you with empathy and compassion, even if certain conditions, which really, when you create conditions around love, it's just more walling, But then when you create, I guess when you create, if you're in relationship and you create conditions, you're not just walling your own heart, you're like building walls you're putting up walls in the other person's heart, and then you end up just in this kind of like disconnected place whereby you're only conversing from the level of the mind, and struggling and unable to get into that heart-centered place. So I really resonate when you say it's like this chipping this is continual work of the path of love.
Wow. Yeah, I feel you there, Jess. Thanks for sharing that, and your awareness of that. It sounded quite deep and intimate, and I feel like there must have been quite a lot for you in that experience. Appreciate you sharing that about your dance with that relationship and the opening, and then the shock response, and then coming back to the chipping away process. It's like, okay, yeah. So resonate with that myself. Yeah. And not to get too bogged down in the shock responses and the guilt about that. Um, to come back to the chipping away process and find solace in that, and love that. And I guess that may be that dance of the empathetic with the conditional, that the empathy is meeting where the conditions have been built in me and chipping away at them with empathy to, yeah, to dance with them, to bring repetition and to free them up, to bring movement to them. It's almost like give them space, give them breathing space. It's like, oh, I only love you if, what does that look like? What's that repetition? Yeah, like, I only love you if you do the dishes. I only love you if you give me a hug and a kiss when I want it. It's like, okay, how does that feel? And what does that look like? And then it's like the truth of it can kind of, the deeper, maybe there's sorrow underneath it. Like, oh, that condition was placed on my love once, and that felt really uncomfortable. um, yeah, so perhaps there's that kind of weaves back into the grief thing. It's like, however much I believe something mentally, however much I really give it like so much value, if I give it dance time to go, how does it feel to have that condition? To really put that on someone or myself in that relationship, and eventually be like, oh, what's the truth of it in my body now? Yeah, what's the story of it? Allow the deeper story rather than just the outcome. It's like maths, show the working out or show the working in. What is the working in process to get to that answer, to that mental condition? And then I can actually get all my credits when I show that. It's kind of like a funny little metaphor. But yeah, I'm with this so much. Like, it's like, wow, this chipping away and this freezing. And yeah, a big part of the de-thawing and getting back to chipping is letting go and chipping away at guilt, where I feel like my responses have been really painful and that I should have been better, or I'm judging the relationship so much because I didn't get what I needed, and I put so much effort and energy into it. And so it's like, yeah, oh, there's so much there. And it's like these windows into transcendental experiences. It's like I think they are really handy in hand with the gradual work, because yeah, to have a vision is everyone needs a vision, right? Everyone needs something to aspire towards.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I got oh man, I got to chat about this with you for a long time, mate. Maybe we do a whole podcast on love. Yeah, like I got like a couple of last questions because sun's going down now, and yeah, I want to kind of come back to like Leo, but like we're also with the heart, and ask the question. Well, get a couple of questions. Like first off, if the listeners are kind of like thinking like, oh wow, I've got like kind of like awareness around the heart and the connection, and maybe I recognize that I've been disconnected. Right, okay, what can I do now? So like, could you give any advice for that if someone finds that they're in this place of disconnection with themselves or from the heart, what they can do to maybe reestablish a connection, or maybe it's not even about reestablishing the connection. Maybe it's about first like witnessing. So yeah, I don't want to load too much, but like yeah, what would your thoughts be on that, please, buddy?
Yeah, I'd say for what's been really handy is looking into the polyvagal, and it's a simple model of like dorsal. It's got these language terms for like basically how it's a loving response to disconnect. How is it loving? how is it a loving response for me to disconnect? Because it's almost like if I'm feeling disconnected and I'm stuck, is what I'm hearing from what your question is. So I'm imagining is like how to, when I'm feeling stuck in disconnection, because there's a difference from disconnecting and then reconnecting. And there's a difference between disconnecting from someone else and staying with that moment of I've disconnected from them and how are they feeling and how do they, and there's almost like two levels of disconnection that creates a stuckness. There's a disconnect from the other and from myself. So if I've chosen my body or unconsciously reacted like, or like a spasm, like a shock, it's like, okay, really honor that I've got a physical body here, I'm alive, like really honor the life that I've been given and what my body's needed to do in that moment. And it feels like that is working for my heart, because it's then appreciating when other people do that too. They're not disconnecting. It's that empathy. You can't disconnect from empathy. Empathy is always there. It's not created. It's just recognized. Like if essentially the universe and our life and everything, no matter what anyone ever does, is always rooted in some level of love, then yeah, it's almost like not putting too much weight or pressure to create empathy and to reconnect, because empathy is kind of how I'm imagining connection for is for people listening to feel connected again and to feel empathy, no matter how I've responded or how they've responded. What's my understanding of the process for them as a human, for them as an animal, for their past and their history, to respect them. And often I feel like respect and building respect for the depth of the human, even if they don't see it themselves yet. Like, what is it that they don't even know about themselves yet? Maybe they don't even know the name. A lot of people don't know the name of their granddad. I didn't. And they don't know their story. They don't know the epigenetic imprinting into why they are like psychically and everything that they're with. It's like, wow, there's a lot there. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, really respecting nature. And again, there feels like a divine reason for why this all happens. It's like, come back to nature, come back to my respect to this earth that I live on, and this sense of the depth. It's almost bringing appreciation to the depth of responses, because that contraction and that disconnection is also a level of depth. It's like, whoa, there's a deep feeling here that's more powerful than me, more powerful than my ego, perhaps. Or and whoa, it's like, whoa, I'm really connected to something. So it's almost enjoying something, enjoying a story of it's like when you watch maybe reading a book or listening to a story of when someone else has done it, and when the story gets dark and someone's like, it's still valuable and it's still part of life. It's like Gollum in Lord of the Rings or something. It's like that character is so key and makes such a powerful, it's like he's like the archetypal disconnect, right? And holds so much depth in that, and the compassion. So story, listen to the music. I mean, there's so much out there of people who've already been through this process as well, and connecting to those people who are maybe just one step further than from wherever I find myself or someone else finds himself is the easiest way, rather than trying to attain to be like, some sort of character like the Buddha kind of thing. It's like just someone who's feeling a little bit more appreciation for either the depth or whatever the experience is. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Just remind me, we said we do an archetypal exploration of Lord of the Rings at some point. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Yeah. Oh, mate, I've got one more question for you. It's been an awesome podcast. To round things off, I want to just circle back and finish on Leo. And I want to ask you the question, like, how can we work with the Leo archetype to bring benefit to our lives?
Hmm. Yeah, the word expression is really coming right now. I'm trusting in that. Is embracing expression and um, allowing expression to be supportive of like the inner micro internal experience. Allow expression to be of support to that. And it's like, how can the yang and the loud be really supportive of whatever the inner feeling is? How could that become an enjoyable process? So it's kind of like how to benefit, how to work from the Leo archetype is um uh, my life is all about experimenting, has been, and so give something a go, express something, allow shape and expression, voice, movement, getting together with others, allow it to be supportive for your inner experience. See how it interacts, see how it feels on the inside. So this is how I'm feeling, really disconnected, or I'm feeling like this in myself or in my life, and I'm going to go and do something outward in service of my inner rather than a disconnection. Like maybe I'm going to go partying, or maybe, maybe I'm going to drink something, or, whatever it is, that wherever you're at, it's like rather than it being against or in opposition, it's together. Even if it seems opposite, even if it feels opposite to some degree, even if it's historically been that maybe you don't want to go somewhere, maybe you don't want to do something that's historically been very difficult or challenging, like public speaking or going to a dance. Like everyone's got different experiences, so archetypally you just pick something maybe you haven't had an experience in yet, where you're rewriting the story, you're becoming the author of the new experience, because it's like, yeah, maybe it's going to like a dance class or amateur theatre show. Maybe you just go and watch it. Maybe it's paint something big on a big piece of paper. Be really expressive. Um, yeah, like so it's just like an infinite possibility. So yeah, choose something maybe that's like, for me, I've been choosing dance. I haven't had much of a history of dance. I used to do a lot of athletics and a lot of like pole vaulting, which is very kind of expressive form of athletics. But my history is I don't really feel like going there. It's really challenging, but I'm still approaching the same Leo archetype through dance. And then I'm also bringing music in. Maybe that's a little bit more challenging. So I'm resourcing with a few different expressions, a different flavors of the Leo. So yeah, maybe you want to mix it up and have a palette for the different colors. And yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like that, the map of wholeness. It's like the elements, the water, the earth, the fire, the air, allow Leo expression and the yin and the yang within each of those areas to kind of be explored. If you're feeling stuck somewhere, maybe look in another direction. If the yang isn't kind of working, it's yin. It's kind of this um I guess it's like working with opposites, and Leo energy seems to be more yang and expressive, and so it's like, okay, great, and yeah, that's yeah, that's what the best I can do right now as an answer.
That's pretty damn good. Thank you, brother. Man, I always love speaking with you, going into conversation, mate. I just always love it. So like, thank you so much for your time, energy, love, enthusiasm, presence, and everything that makes you you, mate. Like, keep on shining, brother. You're like, yeah, bright, beautiful light, and yeah, it's just like being of love, man. Like, I just really felt from you today, and like, I just like I feel like love from you all. Yeah, whenever we meet, it's just like I love just like spending time with you. So yeah, like I love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Jess. Thanks. It's yeah, it's a real honor and dive for me to come on the podcast with you and share, and feels like a massive gift to receive from you. And I really feel this love as reciprocity, and yeah, I feel like you've gifted me a lot in just sharing the platform to share, and the questions and what you've shared and the way you've received what I've shared. And yeah, it's like it feels like love in action, and it's like like the people like rowing maybe on a boat. It's like, yeah, we're doing this together. There's emotion. So thanks for being in the canoe with me and steering the ship, steering the rudder as I row, maybe, and then yeah, it's building the boat.
And thank you for your sharings as well, and your openness, and going to that like vulnerable place as well. You know, it takes a lot to do that on any kind of platform with anyone. Well, you know, one to one, let alone on a podcast. So like, thank you for that, because our openness and vulnerability helps give people permission to share in the same way, and ultimately deeply healing. So thank you for that in your sharings. It's like really like special thing. So yeah, I really appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Let's keep rowing.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I need it. I don't know about you, but I need it so much. Yeah.
Right. Thank you once again, brother. Much love.